Well, hello everybody. This is John. Welcome to the NCGA FMC Ag Weather Outlook for April 18th, 2015. At least where I live here in St. Louis, I've been seeing some early field activity. Fields are fairly dry and a little early season work has started, so that's good to see. But I do have some interesting news in this briefing, especially about temperature, an interesting temperature pattern coming up for the next couple of weeks. Now, precipitation over the last 7 days, we've continued that trend at the upper Midwest, North and South Dakota. Not much precipitation at all. Some welcome precipitation in parts of Kansas and Nebraska. And then the rest of the Corn Belt, the Eastern Corn Belt, fairly quiet. Now, just to the south here in Kentucky, what you can see is a band of enhanced precipitation right in here. The southern half of the Ohio River Basin has been quite active all season, and that was again the case last week. And if you look at percent of normal, look at this. The entire Midwest pretty much below normal. Like I said, some welcome precipitation above normal here in parts of Nebraska and also parts of Kansas. The eastern third, perhaps, of Nebraska that really needs some precipitation was dry. All of Iowa also needs precipitation, was dry. And the eastern Corn Belt, very dry as well. So the story last week, last 7 days, was generally quiet weather as far as precipitation, with the exception of the part of Kentucky that I just mentioned. Now, if we go past the last 30 days, I do like to keep an eye on this. Actually, this is the last 60 days. I went a little bit further this time. And this gives us some idea of where we need additional spring rainfall and where we don't. And most of the area does need additional spring rainfall. 1 to 3 inches would be a benefit if it came at a manageable rate at this time. Now, if you look over the last week, number of rain days, areas in brown are regions that receive not a whole lot of rain days, so mainly dry. Areas in green are areas that received a lot of rain days. So we see the upper Midwest, a lot of brown, either 0 or 1. So North and South Dakota, large parts of Minnesota, 0 out of the last 7 days was their measurable precipitation. Now, over areas to our south, especially from East Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Kentucky, and Tennessee, this has been very, very active. We saw again last week, at least 4 out of 7 days, there was some measurable rain. I know there's been a lot of delays in planting in this area, the southern tier of the ag regions. What we have here is lots of delays, not necessarily always because of excessive rain, but just a daily wetness that we've had. We've seen that again. We saw that again last week with 4 or 5 days of consecutive rain. Now, here's a different way of looking at it. This is the maximum consecutive dry days. And the more the yellows are brown, it shows dry conditions. The blues, wet conditions. So we're looking at lots of the eastern Corn Belt, 5 days or less, maximum dry days. So we've had at least some precipitation, maybe once a week. Whereas, look at South Dakota here. This is saying that there's been maybe at least 15 consecutive dry days in this region. So this has really been, the region has been really the driest recently, and this will be updated. There's been some recent rain, but overall this area has been very dry. Now, last week wasn't quite as warm as the prior week, but the entire Midwest, the entire Corn Belt did experience temperatures above normal. Like we've seen now for quite some time, the upper Midwest, North and South Dakota, Minnesota, the greatest anomalies, warm anomalies, about 10 degrees to as much as 15 degrees above normal for the average for the last 7 days. Now, soils are generally speaking wetter over the eastern Corn Belt, very dry over the upper Midwest. This gives you some idea. Due to some thunderstorm activity, we have had some increase in soil moisture over western parts of Missouri. And with the front that's going through this week, this will also continue off to the east. So I think we will see some soil moisture replenishment in this region here. But generally speaking, this has dropped off a bit. This was near about 4/10 of an inch, and you can see it's dropped off. So it's been drying in this region. Now, the story that I want to talk about that's going to be a fairly big trend change is this dip in the jet stream. Now, last week's briefing, I remember I mentioned we're going to have a transition week, and then we're going to get into this pattern. Well, here we are. The jet stream is going to dip. We're going to have this blue, which means the jet stream is further south than it would normally be this time of year. And this is going to be a persistent type of pattern. And it's going to bring cooler temperatures to the entire region. So this week, here are temperature anomalies. Now, early this week, very early in this briefing period, a front will be pushing through, producing some showers and thunderstorms. Now, behind that will be the transition. So we're looking at anywhere from 5 to perhaps 10 degrees below normal temperatures average this week. Now, looking for next weekend, just to give you some idea of the potential temperature range, we're looking at the freezing mark right here, blue's freezing. This is next Saturday, about a week out. Look how far south the 30-degree line comes. Even here in the southern parts of the Corn Belt, we're looking at 40s, low 40-degree temperatures in this region. So a significant drop in temperature throughout the week. High temperatures, we're looking at only in the 40s over the upper Midwest, even into the eastern Corn Belt, high temperatures in the 40s. So definitely progressively cooler as we go through the week. And not only is it progressively cooler, it looks like it's going to stay around for a while. This is April 23rd through 28th, the coolest temperatures, the anomalies. I see a dark blue there, and that's 10 to as much as 15 degrees below normal over the eastern Corn Belt from Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, parts of Wisconsin and Michigan. But the entire region, I still see below normal temperatures, maybe not as much over the western Corn Belt. Finally, as we get towards the end of the month into early May, persistently cool over the east, but I see moderation over the central and western part of the region. So it looks like through most of the rest of the month, we're looking at below normal to well below normal temperatures. Now, the precipitation forecast or the outlook, most of this precipitation is going to come very early in this briefing period. This weekend, maybe early this week, maybe some modest rain. I don't see anything excessive, maybe ½ to 1.5 inches in a few spots early this period, and then it looks like it's going to dry out. So let's look at some of the precipitation anomalies. This is week 1, nothing all that spectacular, maybe a little bit above normal over the eastern Corn Belt. Then as we get to week 2, next week is going to be a cool week and a dry week, a very quiet week. And we see yellow over the entire region. That's below normal precipitation. Now, week 3 and 4, I shift to a climate model. I never want you to get too hung up on week 3 and 4 precipitation trends. I show it to you just to sort of look for consistency, but these are way out there and they can change quite rapidly. But I will say that week 3 and week 4 does show some possibility of an uptick in precipitation over the western Corn Belt, Nebraska, Kansas, South Dakota, which would be very much needed. Again, it's way out there. I put it here so we can watch it from week to week and see if the trend continues. Now here are your current soil temperatures. Mentioned last week that we're going to see a significant northward progression of the 60-degree line, and you can see it here. It definitely has started to work its way north. Unfortunately, if we look at the forecast here, this is the current reading, and what we see by the end of the week, this is by the end of the week, the 60-degree line, the yellow, begins to drop, and we really begin to see a cool down or maybe a stabilization in temperature. So really no further northward progression of these warm temperatures because of the cooler air is going to definitely either slow or even push, make them cool down over the next week. So your takeaway, the big trend here, significantly cooler temperatures lasting the rest of April, maybe even into early May over the eastern Corn Belt. Some rain with this transition very early. Then I think we're looking at a below normal precipitation pattern right through next week. So if you're looking for warmer temperatures, I don't think we're going to get them. It looks like it's going to be a cool spell, especially the middle of this week into next week. Take care. I'll be talking with you again real soon.